Hello and welcome to episode 49 of the She.Must.Knit podcast. My name is Erin and thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope you guys had a great week. We had a pretty good week. It was an average week, but guess what? There were no bus cancellations. So Avery was at school all week and it was cold, but it's actually been a really sunny week. So it's been cold but sunny, and it's supposed to warm up next week, so that's exciting. However, next week is March break here, so I need to figure out what to do with her all week. But I will do that. I will figure that out, and hopefully we'll be able to do some crafting and some knitting. She hasn't been working on her knitting for a little while, so maybe next week will be a good opportunity to sit down and get a little progress on her projects. So what do I have for you today? I have some works in progress. I have a finished project, I have some planning that I want to do, I have the collection for this week and the vote for the next collection, and I think that's about it. So let's get started. I'm going to have a quick sip of my coffee. I have carrot cake today from Bones Coffee. And guys, I had a little inventory, a little coffee inventory over the weekend, and I think I have probably about a week's worth left of my flavored coffees. So I've already been on the Bones Coffee website and I've picked out all the flavors that I want to get. And I think as soon as I'm down to, I have one bag that has a little bit more quantity in it. As soon as I'm down to that one bag, I am going to be placing an order, and I'm so excited because they have a whole bunch of new flavors. So that's what I'm drinking today, carrot cake. It is quite tasty, and let's get started on the works in progress that I've been working on. So the first thing that I'm going to show you today is the progress that I've been making on my Taste of Fall sweater. This is to use some yarn that I've had in my stash for 2 years. They're balls are huge. This is the leftovers of the one that I'm working on right now. It is bigger than my head, and it's just taking up a lot of space in my stash. So one of my bingo goals for this year is to do something with this yarn. And I decided on this pattern because it called for the same weight of yarn as this. I thought it would be really nice worked up in this color, and then I thought it would be nice to wear with my leggings. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, my heart was taken by another project this week, and over the last maybe 2 days or so, I was like, okay, you need to work on this sweater. A, because I want to finish it, and B, because I've been dying to cast on one of the projects for the Breezy Arms MAL, the two projects, or the two patterns that I shared with you last week that I was deciding on. I was dying to cast one of those on, but I am not going to do that until this sweater is done. So I made myself work on it, and I think I got a pretty good amount of progress done. So where you see the emoji marker there, that's where I ended off last week. I got the ribbing done and I had gotten a fair bit into the cable. Well, this is what I've got done over the last 2 days or so. I've continued working through the cable chart. I have now done the second set of decreases. The way this pattern works is after every so many inches, you do a decrease in each one of these kind of panel sections, and I've just finished the second set of those decreases. So now I just have to knit the pattern chart up until I think 24 inches, and then I get to split for the front and the back. So I'm about maybe 17 inches right now. So this project I think is going pretty well. When I work on it, it is fairly fast. Like, I do make progress on it fairly quickly, but I feel like when I work on it, it takes, like, I feel like it's so slow. I feel I'm so slow knitting on this because of the big yarn, the big needles. I feel like it takes, like, my entire hand, like, I have to move my entire hand to manipulate the yarn and the stitches, whereas when I'm working on smaller projects, it's really just, like, these two fingers, I'm just, like, knitting away. So when I work on it, I feel like I get somewhere, but when I'm not working on it, I'm like, I don't want to work on it because it just feels like it takes so much longer to get anywhere. But I'm really hoping to make a good amount of progress on that over this coming weekend and into next week, especially with it being March break, because I want to get this done. Like I said, I want to get this done, and I want to cast on my next garment. I have decided, last week I showed you two patterns, the Cumulus and the Summer line. I think I've decided to start with the Cumulus blouse and then do the summer line after. Because the Breezy Arms cowl goes until September, I do feel like I'll have time to make both. And my mom watches, and she made the point that because I got the yarn for the Cumulus blouse from my dad, and usually my dad comes to visit sometime in the spring, it might be nice to have a project started with the yarn that he got me. So just a few details about the Breezy Arms cowl in case you are interested. It is the cowl or mal make-along that is currently running in the Bling Your String group on Ravelry, and it is for any garment, any size, baby to adult, that shows a little bit of your arm. So as long as it shows part of your arm above your wrist and it's a garment, you can include it in this make-along. Now, I had a question last week in the comments if full-length sleeves would be allowed if there was lace in the sleeves. And this is the only allowance I'm going to make for full-length sleeves, because I think lacy sleeves still kind of fits in with the Breezy Arms theme. So if you absolutely need to do full-length sleeves because that's just more flattering on you, or that's your preference, as long as there is lace incorporated, that is fine. But otherwise, the sleeves have to be shorter than your wrist. And if that's not your style, then you know what, there are lots of other garment cowls going on Ravelry. I think Little Big Knits is currently having a year-long garment cowl as well, so there's lots of other places to put your garments. So that is going on right now, and again, it goes until September, so lots of time to make a garment regardless of where you live in the world. So that is my first work in progress, and my second one. This is the one that has just been stealing all my attention. I've only been wanting to work on this, and then I have to steal myself away to work on other things. I am so enjoying this. When I showed you the progress on these last week, I had just started the cuff. So these are my March Desert Vista Dyeworks socks. I had showed you the cuff. I was into the first repeat of the striping pattern, and I had said, you know, maybe if we're lucky, next week I'll have a little bit, I'll have gotten into the shaping of this pattern, because it's kind of an interesting pattern. The pattern I've chose for this month is called Hattu, and the placement of the shaping, like usually where the heel flap or the heel shaping would be, is on the instep, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on the bottom of the foot, and it just seemed really interesting. Well, guys, I've got the first sock done. I am into my second sock. This has just been such a fun knit. So this is the first sock. I think so last week I would have been up around this black stripe here. I got the whole leg of the ribbing done, and then I got down to the heel. This is where the shaping is done. You can see there's like increases along here. So if you remember in February, the pattern that I was doing, the jangle socks, it had very similar shaping to this, but it was on the back of the heel. With this pattern, it's on the front. And then once you finish this shaping here, all the increases, you stop and you do a heel turn here, and then you do some short rows down here to keep the foot going. So if you look at the striping, you can see that after I finished, it's knit basically around and around and around and around while you're doing this. So up until about here where the ribbing ends, it's just knit around and around and around. And then you start doing some turns to do the heel shaping, and that takes up this amount of space right here, and then right about here is where you join in the round again to continue down the foot. So I really enjoyed this. Everything involved techniques that I've done before, so just like the jangle socks last month, I only had to refer to the pattern maybe 3 times during the process. So, you know, up here it's like cast on X amount of stitches and do 2x2 rib for X amount of inches. Great, fine, did that. And then when I got about here, it was like, okay, you had to set up for the increases, but then it's just every other round increases. Okay, got that. So I was able to work all through there. And then when it got down to here, you just had to kind of position your stitches so that you'd be working kind of in the middle, like the exact opposite of this shaping, because you don't want your heel shaping coming out the side, right? So you just had to kind of, I had to position my needles a little bit to make sure this was in the right spot. And then it was very similar, like if you've done the Flegel heel, this little part was very similar to how you get that little heel part going. And then once you finish that, getting it continuing on with the sole was just wrap and turn. So This pattern used, I think they called them double stitches, and from reading it, I believe it would be very similar to if you've done the Fish Lips Kiss heel, what they call their twin stitches. I decided not to do that. I always found with the Fish Lips Kiss heel, I could never, my brain could never wrap around those twin stitches. I always had to look up how to do them, and then even as I was doing them, they just would not sink in. So I thought, you know what, I wonder if this will work with German short rows. And so because I've been really loving the German short row heel, those are ingrained in my brain. I decided to do German short rows for these, and it's worked out fine. You can see there that everything, like there's no weird gaps or anything. It worked out fine with the pattern. So yeah, I just did German short rows and it worked out great. There's the little purl stitches are continued down here. And yeah, the only other thing that I did differently is, if you will have noticed in the project photo, there is a horizontal rib that goes along the top of the foot. I decided not to do that. I just thought it would be easier for me just to knit this in plain stocking knit. I wouldn't have to worry about, oh, how many rows am I doing purls, how many rows am I doing knit, how am I going to incorporate the increases in that, blah, blah, blah. I just decided to knit it straight, and I actually really like how that looks, and I like how it fits as well. Now, you can't get the full gist of how this looks on the foot on this blocker, so I took a picture before I sat down. I took a picture of it on my foot, and I will insert that here just so that you can see how this heel construction fits on an actual foot. And I have to say that when I get to the point where I can knit some of the Desert Vista Dyeworks monthly socks for myself, I want to get my gift socks done first. But when I get to where I can knit some for myself, I really want to try this pattern for myself, because I feel like this has the potential to fit my foot really well. Every construction that I've done so far on my own feet, there always seems to be a problem. I really enjoyed doing the Flegel heel for many years, but I'd always get this weird little poochiness around my ankles. And then I went to the German short row heel, and I love knitting that. It's so quick, but I find I can't get like the perfect depth or the perfect position. It always seems like the heel moves around on me. I don't know if I just have a weird shaped heel. I don't think I do. I definitely don't have a high instep, but it just never seems to fit on my heel properly. And then I look at the socks that I've made for other people on their feet, and they seem fine, which makes me think it's my feet. But this, I think, has the potential, because of this ribbing going all around my ankle, and because of this not really having to cup my heel, it's just shaped along the bottom of my foot. I think this has the potential to fit me pretty well. Same with the Jangle socks last month. I think I'm going to have to try those for myself as well and just see. But this pair has potential, and it's been a really enjoyable knit. So this is the first sock, and I have actually made progress on the second sock. I got that cast on as well, and I'm actually just working through, you can kind of see there, I am working through the shaping, the increases that go along the front of the foot. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention, I generally prefer the start of a toe-up sock. I just like starting at the toe. I really don't, actually, okay, I don't mind Kitchener. I've said this before. I don't mind it. I just don't like how it looks, whereas my toe-up toes, I like how those look. What I find easiest, because I find starting a top-down sock can be a little annoying. What I find the easiest thing to do is to cast on the stitches, the amount of stitches that the pattern calls for, and I cast them on my regular size needles. So I always use a 2mm needle for my sock. I use my 2mm needles. I just make sure that when I do my cast on, I leave a fair amount of space between each stitch. I don't butt them up against each other. I leave a good amount of space, and I find that that leaves plenty of stretch. And then the other thing I do is I knit 2 rows straight before joining in the round, and you can kind of see the result of that right there. I don't know if you'll be there. There's a little gap right there, and that's from knitting 2 rows straight before joining, because I just find it easier to manage the stitches then. I find it easier to not twist them. I find it easier just to manipulate them. I just find it easier. And then I can either leave that, like I could leave that little gap and it would help with the fit at the top of the sock, or I could take the little tail from casting on and stitch that up, and no one would know there was a gap there in the first place. So that's what I like to do with my top-down socks, just to make the start of them go smoother and be a more pleasant process. But yeah, so this is where I am on my second sock. I don't mean to toot my own horn here, but I'm pretty confident that I'm going to finish these by the end of the month. So my plan is, once those socks are done, I'm going to be casting on the next pair of socks for Dennis. On my bingo card, one of my goals is to knit at least 4 pairs of socks for Dennis. He desperately needs more socks in his hand knit sock drawer, and I thought if I finish these really early, that gives me time to work on a pair for him. And so I have picked out the yarn that I'm going to be casting on, and this is one in my stash. I think I picked this up on one of my yarn crawls that I've done. I just thought there, I don't know if you can see the design there, I thought this was just a really nice kind of manly pattern, but there's enough interest in terms of the colors that it's going to be fun for me to knit too. And I might try one of these patterns that I have just discovered for him as well. Although German short row heels do seem to fit him okay, so I might just do that because they're so fast. But yeah, so this is going to be the next cast on for that. And then next, I have some spinning to share with you. So last week, I was talking about, I showed the finished project that I did for Vanessa, and I had shown you a braid of fiber from Bluewater Fibre Arts that I was going to put on my wheel next because I wanted to get a skein done for another square on my bingo card is to make a sweater incorporating handspun, and I thought this would be really nice for that project. I finished it, guys. I finished it in a week. I finished this skein. So this colorway is Flutter, and I did it as a chain ply because I wanted to keep the colors together so that the pattern I picked, if you'll remember last week, had kind of a bit of color work in the yoke, and so I wanted the colors to stay together so there might be a little bit of a gradient between the colors as they were worked into the yoke. So this is the finished skein, and it's mostly, I hit about the weight of yarn that I wanted. I wanted about a worsted weight yarn, and some of the places in this skein, you know, veer towards DK, and some of them are closer to worsted, but overall I think it will be fine for that pattern. The only thing I'm worried about is because I did a 3-ply or a chain ply, it eats up the yardage quite a bit, and I only got about 130 yards in this skein. So I know when I was looking at that pattern, for all the sizes, you just needed 1 skein for that accent color, and I think the yarn they used had 200 yards. But I don't know if they actually needed to use all of that skein. So this might be enough, or it might be a little short. I mean, that there wasn't really that much color work. I think it would be okay, but I might have to spin a plan B just in case. So that is this project, and then I was going to show you some fiber that I was thinking of working on next, because I've mentioned before the best way for me to maintain my spinning momentum is to get another project on the wheel right after I finish one. And so I pulled out 2 braids or 2 types of fiber from my stash, and I thought you guys could let me know which one you think I should spin next. Both are very, very pretty, and both I'd be completely happy to work with. So the first one is this one, and this is another one from Sonia at Bluewater Fibre Arts, and this is called Time Machine, and I actually have 2 of these, so I was thinking this could be a potential backup for that sweater if the other one, if there's not enough. The only thing is, because there's more teal with this, if you'll remember, the skein of yarn that I was going to use for the rest of the sweater was teal. I'm afraid that this would get lost, like the color work would get lost, but this would still be a really fun spin. So this is option number 1, Time Machine. And then the other one, I thought, I have this bag of Rolegs from Blue Mountain Handcrafts, and look at those. They are sparkly and pretty, and there's some like bronze kind of copper colors and purples and teals, and I've spun with their Rolegs before, and they're really quite pleasant. I'll have to look online and see if they still have a website. If they do, I will link it below. But what I like about their Rolegs in particular is that if you can see here, they have different classifications for them. So there's smooth, semi-smooth and textured. And basically what that means is like a textured roll leg would have lots of big bits in it, whereas smooth is just, there's not, everything is really, really well blended. And when I started spinning with roll legs, I learned I prefer a smooth preparation. I don't like having all these little uneven bits because I just like a smoother yarn. So I really like that they label their roll legs with what kind of prep there is so that you know exactly what they're getting. So those are the two options. So that the roll legs are called Earth Magic. So let me know, what do you think I should spin next? The Earth Magic roll legs or the Time Machine Fibre? And then the final thing I have to share with you this week is my collection. If you remember last week, the two fabrics that I shared with you were a Looney Tunes fabric and then a Zelda themed fabric. And guys, the voting was almost like tied the entire time. So I decided to do a collection with each of those fabrics, and I really, really love how everything turned out. So I think I'm going to share the Zelda one with you first. I was able to get 3 bags for each of the collections. And so for the Zelda one, I was able to get I call these my tall bags. So they're a zippered bag, but there's a little bit of extra room compared to my regular pouches. So these are really good for like 3 skein projects. So I got a tall, I got a sidekick size, and I got one of my regular sizes. So I got the 3 bags for the Zelda print, and then I did a sock blank. And this is it here. And I think this turned out really, really pretty and goes with the fabric really well. So that's the sock blank for the Zelda fabrics. And then the Looney Tune fabrics. I again got 3 bags for Looney Tunes. So again, another tall bag. A regular bag, and then I did a wee sidekick with the accent, so I got one of these. And so the sidekicks, both the wee sidekick and the regular sidekick, are interfaced. The other bags are non-interfaced. And then the yarn. When I posted the Looney Tunes fabric as an option, I think someone commented about loving Marvin the Martian, and I was like, oh my goodness, he would make such a great progress keeper. So that's what I decided to do for the deluxe sock set to go with the Looney Tunes fabric. So this is it here. This is the main skein, and for my deluxe sock sets, I have a 50-gram speckled skein and then 2 semi-solid 20-gram skeins. So this is the main speckled skein, that's 50 grams. And then there's 2 of the 20 grams. And this one looks quite dark, but I think you can tell with the lighting, there's actually, it's like a dark, dark blue, and you can see some hints of green, and there's a little bit of some light speckling in there as well. So that's the one, and then the other one is kind of this cherry red color. And then my deluxe sock sets come with a little progress keeper, and here he is. You see little Marvin. I love how he turned out with his little hat, his little helmet. So there he is. So that is the progress keeper that comes with this deluxe sock set. So I will be taking a picture of those after, and they will be up by the time you see this episode. They will be up on the site. And then the last thing I have for you is the vote for the next collection. And I thought I would pick out some fabrics that were just speaking to the warm weather that is coming eventually. And so I thought these 2 would be really nice, both in terms of the themes and the colors. So the first one, we've seen this one before, but I really love the colors in this one, and I love the theme. I love the succulents. So your first choice is the succulents. And then your second choice are these little camper bands. And again, I think the colors will be really nice for spring. So those are your choices for the next vote. So let me know in the comments below, either the succulents or the camper bands. And just remember, any comment on any of my videos, as well as any item ordered in my shop, gives you an entry for the draw I do every month for a $20 coupon to my shop. So that is it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and get lots of crafting done. And if it's March break where you are and you are going to have your kids home next week, I hope you survive. And I will talk to you soon.